All right, very good. So we've got a very tight program today because we will go from 10 and we will end by 12 o'clock at the latest, or a few minutes before. So I won't waste a lot of time going back and forth. To start, I would actually like to ask Emma Somia Kwao, our co-head of sales, to just open us up with a prayer, and then we'll get started. Emma, please go ahead. Okay. Emma, are you there?
I'm here. Unmute me, Tom.
Okay.
All right, let's pray. Father, we thank you once again for this morning. We thank you for the gift of life, and we thank you for everything you continue to provide for us. We've come again to learn on how to make our career a success, on how to invest for our future. We pray that may this meeting impart the life of our participants and all those we've invited. So at the end, we shall join hands to say that it is the doing of the Lord, and indeed, we've learned to become financially independent. This we pray through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen and amen. Thank you so much. So everyone that is on the call, on behalf of Databank, we greet you and we thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to participate today. Some of you, I've seen a couple names, so some of you may have been with us yesterday. If you're with us again today, I'm glad you've joined. The content today is very different, so you'll still learn a lot more today. We've got two speakers. There will be Dr. Hazel Berrard Amuah. She will be talking on the career side of things about developing a career plan. And she will share some tips, then we will have time for a Q&A. At that point, I will ask you to either put your questions in the chat or raise your hand, and then we'll take your question. And we will do that up until 11. If we're not able to answer all the questions, which is what happened yesterday as well, then anybody who has additional questions can continue to send them to us, and we will get the answers from her for you and give it to you after the program ends. Once she is done, then I will actually come up and talk, and I'll be sharing 10 financial planning mistakes that everybody should try to avoid. So stay tuned for that as well. So it is my pleasure to actually welcome Dr. Hazel, and I'll just tell you a brief, not so brief, but I'll tell you about her. And I'm hoping that you will listen to her profile, because I wanted to inspire you. I wanted to show you that we are capable of achieving a lot, and don't let anybody ever tell you that you can't do it, or that because you're from Ghana, you can't be as good as or better than other people outside of Ghana. So let me just introduce her, but use it to inspire you to do more and be more yourself. So she's an award-winning HR professional with over 20 years experience in the field. Some of the awards that she's won includes the prestigious international #1 top employer award in 2017. She's won for Ghana Top 40 HR Professionals, Ghana Top 50 HR Professionals, Ghana Top 20 HR Professionals, the Ghana Woman Professional of the Year, HR Practitioner of the Year in 2019, and most recently being the Africa HR Personality of the Year. She's also a fellow of the African Leadership Initiative. It's a group that they really serve to promote Africa's agenda and build it. And it's something that she has been doing. And she's also a fellow among 100 Africans in the Pan-African Leadership Initiative. So her interest is in developing people, and she has 2 business degrees, 2 degrees in business administration from Switzerland and the US. She has a master's degree in bilingual translation, French and English, and then a master's degree in organizational development. And then she holds, now I'm going to try and say this in French. French is not my strongest, but she holds a diplôme de langue français niveau B2 de Conseil de l'Europe. Okay, I've messed it up. She can clarify when I'm done, but she holds that. And she also holds a diploma of insurance from Malta. She's also a Henley certified coach from the UK and has cross-cultural certification from the US. Her work experience has spanned 22 countries in Central and West Africa, and in industries like FMCG, energy, and the financial sector. She's written a book recently called Context: Executing Strategy in a Developing Economy. And she's published several other papers. She's an associate of the Royal Chartered Insurance Institute. But if you follow her on social media, Instagram, you will see that she is very passionate about charity work. And she has been doing this for the past 8 years, where she provides support to orphans and children, vulnerable children and lepers through her NGO, which is called Reach Out and Share Foundation. She loves cycling, which you will always see her posting pictures as she cycles all around Accra. Loves swimming, loves reading, loves photography. And all around, a really, really strong individual that you would want to learn from. She has 2 wonderful kids. And she's also a board member on EduFund, or Educational Investment Fund. So I'm really, really happy to be able to introduce Dr. Hazel Berrard Amuah. She will talk on planning a career. Doc, I am turning it over to you. You can unmute yourself, please, and then take over from here.
Thank you, Gillian, for that wonderful introduction, and I'm really happy to be on this call. I hope you can hear me okay. So let's just go straight into it about discussing how to plan a career or choosing a career path. I find this topic very interesting because I never planned my career. And if I had planned my career, I would have made a lot of savings from a time perspective and from a financial perspective. I'm just one of the few lucky ones who didn't plan a career, but I've had a good career by the grace of God so far. I want to encourage people to really take time to think about their career path, to choose a career path, and to make the right plans to achieve that career path from both an educative perspective and a values perspective, and also to continuously build skills and competencies that would help enhance that career that they've chosen. It's important to reflect on your interests and your career goals and certain life choices, including even where you live, when you are thinking about your career. The entry level for the career, how you navigate your way through to grow in that career, and then be able to pick things that take conscious effort or should take conscious effort and time. So what's a career path? I'll summarize to say is a career path is a path that you've chosen made up of several positions in a field of endeavor that you want to embark on. So it starts from a beginning, and of course you will navigate to get to the point of an end, which is a retirement. That is, if you want to work as an employee of an institution or have a profession that has to, be in an institution. But if you want to have a career that makes you an entrepreneur, then you have control over what age that you really retire, because for employment in institutions, legislation in different countries actually give retirement ages, which are usually from age 52 through to age 65 or even 70. Admittedly, some companies or some countries are changing the laws to make retirement ages based on somebody's physical and mental fitness. So there are some variations, but typically across the globe, age 55 to 65 are typical age ranges that people retire from. So your career path should take all these things into consideration. And as you embark on a career path, things that we need to consider are the fact that we will not always move vertically, but at times we move horizontally to gain different experiences before we're able to, again, move diagonally upwards to be able to peak to a certain level, which is called growth. So if we begin to take, for example, a career in education, you may start as a basic teacher. After you have your diploma or degree in education, you start as a basic teacher. Then perhaps you move to a curriculum coordinator, then assistant principal, and then principal. So this could be a career path for somebody in education. If you take retail, we start from a sales associate through to a cashier, to assistant manager, to store manager, to regional manager, and so on and so forth. So there are different career paths that one takes depending on their field of endeavor that they choose from. If you take HR, which is where I found myself, I started off as an HR assistant, HR executive, HR officer, then began to move to an HR specialist, then at some point a generalist, smaller scope of work, a specialist in a broader scope of work, and then a generalist again in a broader scope of work, and now a generalist in a much broader scope of work. So it depends on the career path that you choose, but definitely there will be some navigation, sometimes vertical, sometimes horizontal. And we have to be mindful that when we are making horizontal or lateral moves, it's not because we are stagnating, but we're learning different skills which are peculiar or particular to that level that we have to navigate through, right? So these are important points that I want to encourage you to think about as you choose your career. Other thoughts are the fact that you need to always plan the path carefully with goals at every stage and evaluate the goals as you go along. So as you plan your career path and you have these goals, create a 5 to 10 year plan with clear timelines and put in place those people that will help you to achieve those plans. So who are your peers, your coaches, your role models? Who is your support system? For example, your family, your best friends. Who are those people that will help you to achieve your plan and give you feedback as you progress or deviate from that plan? It's very, very important. Also very important is to understand yourself, your personality type. And there are different methods these days to assess your personality type, because there are times that your personality type may not really suit your career choice, and you may have to make adjustments to your personality and how you engage with people to be able to achieve your career objectives. So that's also very, very important. It's also important to always assess the experiences you build as you go along. So straight from internship to temporary jobs, to contract jobs, to national service, name them, to permanent jobs, whatever you've been through, assess the experiences you are building as you embark on that career path. And also be mindful of some professional enhancements or some educational enhancements you may have to make as you progress along the career path. Take note of your interests as well. There is nothing more suicidal than having a job that bores you to the core, or that having a job that is so unpleasant that you're not able to give up your best. So identify your interests and try to tie your interests to your career path the best way possible. Also identify your core values as a person and how you were raised, your family values, your societal values, your tribal or cultural values are very important, your faith values, and try to link them to your job. If there is no correlation and you're not able to link or transfer those links, those values to your job, you have to ask yourself some very hard questions and make some very tough decisions. And also consider your salary expectations, all right? Every profession, every career has a reward or a salary or a compensation. Some jobs pay higher than others. Some have a higher risk dimension, which call for a higher salary. So you need to consider all these factors as you are choosing your career path. Then consider your future family orientation. For both male and female, how many children do you want to have? Do you want to be married? All right. And all these factors are very, very important as you choose your career path. For example, if you have a career path that has a very high traveling side to it, how do you have a family of 10 kids when you're always traveling around? For example, is a consideration you need to have, right? So it's important that we embark on these little points of reflection before we really have a total plan drawn out. So how do you outline that career goal that you have in mind? Start with a self-reflection by asking yourself some critical questions like, what do I really want to be in future? What do I want from that career? What are my core values? What do I enjoy doing most? Do I love being with people? How much free time do I want to have on my hands? How much time do I want to spend working? How much time do I want to spend engaging with other people? What are my strengths and aptitudes? What are my weakness areas? What are my soft skills and what are my hard skills? And what do I want to specialize in terms of a technical area? And how much or how many management or leadership roles would I want to take in future? These are core questions that we have to ask ourselves as we chart our career path and develop our career goals. So now let's progress and put that into a time frame called a plan, which is from 1 to 10 years. So what do you do in year 1, year 2, year 3, from year 5 to year 10? You have to narrow down your options and take a realistic view of where you are today and what it will take to move to the next level. So, for example, you need to research on people who have similar career paths or similar career goals and how they've been able to achieve or get to the level that they are today, or how they've been able to grow alongside, and take some inspiration and some advice from there. Thankfully, we have a system called the internet, and we have every piece of information on the internet. So Google, search for people who have been able to have similar career paths and take some inspiration and some hints from there to chart your own career path. People are also very, very particular about job titles. What are the job titles you want to have? And this is something that some people think, oh, really, is it important? Yes, it is. For some people, without having director, for example, by their name, or officer or specialist by their name, they don't think they've really self-actualized in terms of where they are growing to become. So take all these future job titles into consideration as you plan your advancement on your career path and your career goals. I've mentioned the personality types, which I want to break down into the choices that you have. The most popular personality type assessment tool we have today is the Myers-Briggs type indicator, which shows your type of temperament, all right, whether introverted or extroverted and all of that. There's another one called the Kersey temperament sorter. We have the Jugen type sorter, and we have other, personality types that show your whole brain thinking or your whole brain profiling, whether you are someone who thinks in numbers or you think with emotions, or whether you are somebody who is very orderly and very procedural and all of that. So you need to have an idea of who you are. Typically, if you want to go into the sciences and the mathematics or the engineering, you need to think about how structured you are, how number-oriented you are. If you want to go into a profession like marketing or sales, how well can you dream? Because you have to develop concepts that will sell, ideas to people. So all these are things that you need to really, really think about as you do your personality assessment and factor that into your career plans. And I mentioned reviewing your previous experience. How often do you even write about your career experience? It's important that you continuously write around your career experience to make sure that whatever you are putting in place would match, the experience that you've had. So every experience is very important, and the experience can be, even working at a place as a temp for even a month. Who do you meet as you are, doing that temp job? What are the kind of things that happen around you, and how do you respond to them? How do people respond to different situations? What kind of questions are being asked, and how do you provide answers? What kind of problems are you given to solve, and how do you solve them? What problems do you anticipate, and how do you propose solutions? So every experience counts in building and driving your career plan. And what type of educational requirements or professional requirements are necessary? Yesterday, I was in a meeting where people were encouraged to take courses at the Ghana Stock Exchange, for example, because of the career path they find themselves on. All right, so as you choose and chart your career path, what are the professional qualifications that are necessary for you to have to be able to succeed? Pencil them down and have a budget and have a plan as to when you're going to engage yourself, free up some time, and put yourself to the task of improving yourself. Assessing your current skills is very, very important, and there are several ways of doing that. Some companies or some institutions have what we call functional competencies or technical competencies based on different professions. So if you're in IT, what are the skills or the functional competencies. And these are not only peculiar to institutions. You can actually find them on the internet. I tell you, it's a very, very, resourceful place to find a lot of information. There's a wealth of information on the internet. So if you want to be a salesperson, what are the typical sales competencies that you should have? Try and get that list down and assess yourself against those skills and find your level. It's important that you use maybe 1 to 5 or 1 to 7 or 1 to 10 to assess your level per each competence and build in plans to be able to move up the notch when it comes to those competencies that you find yourself lacking, have developmental, gaps to close in, and put a plan against those to advise yourself as to how you're going to progress to enhance those competencies that need further developmental growth. So for example, if you take any competency, for example, selling skills, right? And then you are level 2 out of 10. What that means is that you have an 8-point gap to close. So who do you sell to? Do you sell to individuals? Do you sell to companies? Do you sell to groups? Where do you sell? How have you carved a niche in the market? These are things you need to answer and find a way of enhancing your skills. Must you read a book? Must you go for a course? Must you partner with somebody to learn those skills? Must you go in trade with somebody who is superior in those skills and learn from them? But by all means, have a plan to close those career gaps or those competency gaps that you have. And very importantly, take note of your interests. I mentioned that if you don't have passion for the things that you're doing, you're going to kill yourself. Your job has to be fun. And I keep telling people that we work at least 8 hours in an institution or at a job or in our business. 8 hours of somebody's time out of 24 is a third. If that third is boring, is not interesting, is not enticing, is not exciting, then why are you there? Because you will not be productive. You will not be able to come up with great ideas. You won't be creative. And you will find yourself actually going down in terms of your performance level or your output. So if your job is not exciting, you better look for a different job. If your career is not exciting, you better look for a different career. So what are your interests and how do you plug your interest into the things that you do? It's important to have that reflection, and only you can answer that question when it comes to what your interests are. And apply your interest to your job from a short-term perspective. And as you become more productive, you apply it to a medium-term perspective and a long-term perspective. But by all means, please have a way of assessing your interests and then building that into your job and then finding a way to do volunteer, type of things or activities in the workplace that would help you to, unleash your potential and also help you to share your interests at the workplace. If you like, for example, playing word puzzles or playing word games, how do you bring that into team activities in your department or with the people that you work with? How do you factor in all those fun moments to make you thrive at work? It's important that you try to do that because it helps you when it comes to suitability for your career. And your core values. Typical core values for Africans start with respect. Almost every African I know is raised in a home where respect is a non-negotiable value. But however, I know that most of us sometimes deviate from those values that we were raised with, right? So integrity is another one, credibility is another one, hard work is another one, results-oriented is another one, all right? So if you have respect, results orientation, integrity, credibility as your core values, and you go to a place where these are not endorsed, it means there is a mismatch between yourself, your career path or your career options and the place of work you find yourself. You need to make a choice as to whether to continue working in a place where your core values cannot transition in there, because then you find yourself deeply frustrated. That can lead to mental health issues like depression, frustration, stress, which is not good for your physical, emotional, and mental health. So you want to always make sure you assess your core values and make sure that they are matching your career choices. And your salary needs. What kind of lifestyle do you want to have? Where do you want to live? What kind of car do you want to drive? Where do you want your kids to go to school? What kind of clothes do you want to wear? What kind of food do you want to eat? Where do you want to hang out? Do you want to have a vacation every 3, 4, 5, 6 months or once a year? What lifestyle do you want? What kind of house do you want to live in? Where do you want to live? These are very, very important questions as we decide the kind of salary band we want. So it's common knowledge that some jobs pay higher than others. An investment banker salary is not the same salary as an HR director or a carpenter, all things being equal, all right? Except for the fact that a carpenter could have a big carpentry shop and could be a businessman and be able to make furniture and then, ship them all over the place. But all things being equal, from a scope perspective, an investment banker is a very high-end salaried person. All right. So what kind of salary do you want to have in future? That should feed into your career planning, so that as you put your thoughts and your plans in place, you factor in where you want to work and the types of jobs you want to do to achieve your career objectives. There are some typical skills that most companies would look out for. Even if you're an entrepreneur, you also need to have those skills. One of them is leadership skills. You have to be able to lead yourself and lead others. As an entrepreneur, you would have a team that work for you or people that work for you. How do you lead them successfully? Another one is communication. How do you communicate verbally and orally and non-verbal communication? You have to enhance these skills and build these skills as you chart your career path. Team working skills. You will definitely work with people, because nobody is an island and we don't work in silos. Even if you work as an entrepreneur or you work for yourself, you would have stakeholders that you have to engage with. So how do you manage to work in teams and manage to work with people? Interpersonal skills, again, relationships, managing your emotions, managing your temperament as you engage with other people. Learning and adaptability skills, agility. I keep making reference to last year's pandemic, which is still with us, the coronavirus pandemic, which was not foreseen by any figment of imagination by most people who live on the face of the earth. How did we all navigate and adapt to COVID-19 by beginning to wear face masks and sanitize and wash our hands and have physical distancing and so on and so forth, and moving to a more digital platform because we have to limit physical interaction? How do you quickly adapt to changing circumstances? These are skills that you require as an entrepreneur or an employee of an institution. So as you build a career path, build the skill of adaptability and learning quickly and agility. Self-management. You cannot manage yourself. How can you manage others or manage working with other people? So manage yourself in terms of your time. Typical one I always talk about is what time you even go to bed and what time you wake up. Do you always use an alarm to wake up because you sleep very deeply? If the answer is yes, what time do you set your alarm to wake up every day? Discipline with these basic human behaviors are very, very important. So self-management, what kind of food do you eat? How much water do you drink? How much exercise do you engage in? How clean is your environment? How many times do you take a bath in a day? Oh yes, that's important. How many times do you brush? How is your hygiene? To others. So how do you transition to leading others, to leading leaders, to leading enterprise, to leading businesses, to leading even companies and countries? It's very important. Computer literacy, right? So we live in a digital world, a tech world, and we can't run away from computers and smartphones and all of that. Everything in this world is digitized, so how do you enhance your technical proficiency? It should be part of a career plan, and your career goals should also feature enhancement and using different software, different applications to get the job done in a smart way that reduces waste in every form. Problem solving, even now problem finding, how do you anticipate and solve problems is very critical. So your career path, your career goals should have these skills built in it, because they are sought after skills by employers, and even to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to have these skills as well. Being open-minded, thinking, I would say, without a box, not even out of the box, but thinking without a box. How open-minded are you to different ideas from other people? How welcoming are you to receive ideas from other people? How humble are you to say, I think you were right on that point. I didn't even think about that. Oh, that's a good idea. I like that idea. I want to build on that. Can I borrow with pride? How open-minded are you? It's great to be competitive, but competitive in a positive sense, where we leverage on synergy. We leverage on building other thoughts from other people. So how open-minded are you? Are you close-minded? Do you have a learning spirit? Do you have a learning mindset? Do you have a learning, way of doing things? How quickly are you able to adjust to pick a better idea from somebody because it gives better results? It's critically very important. And strong ethics. Ethics and values are very important. What are your ethics? I keep mentioning integrity and credibility. All right. If you work in an enterprise and you have a gift policy, Do you disclose your gifts to your employers? What's your threshold? How do you transact business? Do you always transact business by facilitating, by paying your way through? What are your work ethics? All right. How do you manage resources of the employer? Even if you work for yourself, what is your work ethic? Do you always dip your hand in the imprest and spend all the money that is coming through every day? Or you have the discipline of having a bank account and being accountable for your resources, your capital, your expenses? How disciplined are you? And how are you able to work in a world that's so volatile, so uncertain, so complex, and so ambiguous? So constantly you need to increase how you're able to navigate when it comes to volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Because sometimes what was once upon a time complex becomes so simple to you. How do you stretch yourself to a high level of complexity? How do you stretch yourself to manage a high level of uncertainty? How do you stretch yourself when it becomes so volatile that you can't even determine what's going to happen tomorrow? How do you manage in these different circumstances? And very importantly, another skill that you need is emotional intelligence, understanding yourself and the impact of your behavior, your words, your actions on others. So how sensitive are you to the people around you in a way that you respond positively in changing your style when it's not very pleasant for other people? It doesn't mean that you should also undermine your own work ethics or do the undesirable to suit other people. The most important thing is doing the right thing every time and making sure that it is suiting purpose. So these are a few things I wanted to share with you by way of planning your career. And I want to encourage you to really put that career plan in perspective. Another one I want to mention is basic things that we take for granted, like honesty, like loyalty, like dependability, like flexibility, and self-confidence, eagerness to learn, being self-reliant, being independent, and being that person that people can count on and trust and work with. All right, being determined, being disciplined, and having the desire to always grow will help you as you enhance your career growth or enhance your career objectives or make successes as you go along your career journey. And by all means, remain ambitious and very positive minded. There is nothing wrong with being ambitious. It depends on how the ambition or ambitiousness is managed. So far as ambitiousness or being ambitious doesn't thrive on envy, doesn't thrive on selfishness, or being that kind of person who wants to trample on other people to look good, or being manipulative, is great. Being ambitious simply means that I want to move from step 1 to step 2 to step 3. I want to progress in life by doing the right things, growing myself, becoming better every day, and challenging and pushing myself to stretch to always unleash my potential. How do you do these things? With a positive mindset. By all means, as you chart this path, always go back to the plan, revise your plan, review your plan, and check your progress. If you are stagnating, you better sit up. If you are slacking, you better wake up. If you're on track, you clap for yourself and pat yourself on the back. Celebrate your wins. If you fall, don't remain on the floor. Get up, rise, continue with your path, and by all means, you'll make it. So thank you very much. That's the end of my discussion, Gillian. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Hazel. Thank you so very, very much. I hope everyone was taking notes. We will probably be able to take about 10 questions. So if anyone has any question, please raise your hand or put your question in the chat and then we'll read it out on your behalf. There was, okay, Adriana. Adriana, please unmute yourself and ask your question. Thank you.
Hello, thank you very much. And thank you, Dr. Hazel. Hazel, I have a question. I have heard everything you said and thank you very much. Well taken. Some of them I have started working on it. Well, I have a question which I find myself in that difficult position. How do you, I'm someone who used to live in Ghana. I'm an HR professional. I moved out of the country to raise a family. I've been out of work for 5 years. Trying to get back has been so hard. I have done some of the things you've mentioned, such as developing myself. I've done my CIPD. I have started volunteering as well, but it's almost like nobody wants to take you on. And I've just deflated, and I've started writing a 5-year career plan, like you also mentioned, but I just can't seem to get anywhere. You're not getting through with CVs, you're not getting back any, it's just nobody. And I don't know where to find, I can't fit myself, because apprenticeship, for me to try and get back the experience, is for those they say I'm too qualified, and when you want internship, it's, you're not a fresh graduate. And I've almost lost my confidence, because 5 years without work, and I'm just struggling, and I don't know what to do. Thank you.
I feel your pain, I feel your frustration, and trust me, it's not a very easy space to be in. So I really empathize with you and understand what you're going through. But here's a thought I want to leave with you. How about just thinking about starting something for yourself? How about thinking about being your own consultant? How about just going ahead and beginning to have your own consulting firm and offering services, using social media to start something for yourself, because perhaps it's time for you to start your own stuff. So have you thought about that? I would encourage you to think without the box in terms of being your own person when it comes to driving your career differently and starting something for yourself. That being said, don't kill your dream of getting back into straight employment, but by all means, don't forget about, ever remaining relevant, because the most important thing, the most important gift you can give to yourself is remaining relevant. Don't lose your self-confidence. I would encourage you to have people around you who encourage your support system. I mentioned the support system. So keep your support system tight. Look for role models, look for people who encourage you, and keep searching. But please start something for yourself. I want to encourage you with that.
Thank you very much, Doc. And I completely agree, because Adriana, it will add to her CV when she does something for herself as well. Then there won't be this big gap of nothing. So thank you for your honesty, Adriana. So we'll move to Isaac. Can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hello, good morning. Dr. Hazel, please, I have a question for you. Please, can you really come over with the indicators, the career indicators you mentioned earlier, please?
Which indicators are you referring to?
You mentioned in your presentation, you mentioned some career indicators. I didn't really get them properly, please.
So I mentioned several things. I mentioned skills. I mentioned values. I mentioned other competencies. So I think that it would be good for you to take a private note. Then I'll just, go over them with you differently. But some of them I mentioned in terms of values to have honesty. I mentioned loyalty, dependability, reliance, teamwork, flexibility, dependence, eagerness to learn, self-confidence, having strong work ethics. I think your network is really down. It's not supporting you very well. I mentioned having communication skills, leadership skills. I mentioned agility, problem solving, problem finding, interpersonal skills, team skills, self-management skills, organizational skills, computer skills, open-mindedness, strong work ethics, agility, working in an environment which is very volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, having emotional intelligence. And I mentioned the fact that you need to self-evaluate personality type in fitting your career choices. You need to have a professional assessment from time to time to have an educational top-up or a professional top-up when it comes to, your plan and how to remain relevant and to grow. So those are some of the things I mentioned, but you could take a private note with Gillian and I'll share some more information about what I spoke about earlier on.
Perfect, thank you. We'll move to Ivan. Ivan, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Okay, Gillian, Dr. Hazel, thanks for that presentation, and I'm very motivated. I took some few notes when you were presenting. You said one should identify his or her interest and then align the career path to suit that interest. think ideally that should be the case, but
Yes.
Realistically, it doesn't happen because taking myself into consideration, I love to be an investment banker. And in 2018, I started an internship with an investment firm where I came out as a best intern and then started an ambassadorial work on campus for the investment firm. 2019, I began my national service with them, and then I was asked to take up the Ghana Stock Exchange course. So I took it up, and then unfortunately for me, when I got to the level 3, Ghana GIS, I had to come and take it over. So I'm yet to take that course. What I'm saying is, at the moment, I am home. Yes, and it keeps me thinking. Ideally, my interest is to become an investment banker, but I think I wouldn't hesitate if I've been given the opportunity to enter into something like, say, Ghana immigration. I wouldn't hesitate just because I am home and I am not getting work to do. Instead, I don't have the interest there, but I would choose to go there because I am home and I'm not getting any work to do. So how can I deal with such a situation at the moment? Because at the moment, I'm also an MBA student. I'm studying MBA accounting and finance, but I think my nature is to become an investment banker, but being home and then doing nothing, doing volunteering work, yet you are not hearing anything from the employer. I would love to just switch onto a different career path. So I would like you to advise on such a situation.
And you're not alone. This situation described is typical for a lot of young people and people in search of having a job. So most of us find ourselves looking for a job rather than building a career because of the obvious being sometimes career unavailability. You mentioned investment banking as an interest, and you mentioned, for example, immigration as a job to start with. And I'm using the word to start with very deliberately. What that means is that we all have dreams and we all have our reality or our context. So we sometimes find ourselves in jobs which are not necessarily our careers or career preferences, but we need to start from there because that's what's available. The most important thing is not letting your dream die. So assuming you go into the Ghana Immigration Service because you are lucky to be enrolled in the Ghana Immigration Service, you go through your training at the training school for less than a year, you're enrolled as a junior officer, and you progress to the ranks. What stops you from still pursuing your career dream in investment banking? What that means is that now that you have a way of making money or a way of having a salary, you continuously improve yourself and continuously scout for a job. It is easier for you to look for employment when you are already in one form of employment. When you are not working at all and you have to now transition into having a career or building a career becomes more challenging. So I would say don't stop yourself from starting something different. And here's a surprise I'm going to give all of you. I may be in HR today, but that's not my career path. So I'm about to embark on my real career path, and in the next 5-6 years, you're going to know what my career preference really was. I didn't start off being in HR by choice. I found myself in HR by accident. So what I wanted to do is not what I really am doing. 25 odd years down the line, I am still pursuing my preferred career, which I'm going to do very soon and complete. All right. So don't let circumstances in life stop you. And you find yourself on a career path that you're even thriving in and doing well in, is not your original interest. Don't let that also drown your original interest. Progress, go ahead, launch into what you have really originally dreamt of doing, and don't lose out, just do it. So investment banking should remain your dream, your interest, unless you decide to really, really move out of that completely onto something else because another interest has taken over. But if that remains your interest, please, by all means, don't stop yourself from getting a job to get an earning of salary of sorts and pursue your dream.
Thank you, Doc. Okay, so the questions are coming in quite a bit. So I'll ask Kojo to unmute himself and try and be brief with your questions so that we can take as many as possible. So Kojo, please unmute yourself.
Hello, Dr. Hazel. Thank you very much for your presentation. So I'm in this situation where I'm interested in quite a lot of things, primarily because I was exposed to them, right? And one of them, but it looks like all of them seem so interesting that I don't know which one to actually go for, and then which one to actually do on the side. And I'm really torn between a lot of decisions, and also trying to look for a job. I mean, start with on the particular interest that I'm in. And I don't know if you could help me with some sort of advice on it. Thank you.
It's a great question, and it's a dilemma that people find themselves in. But trust me, you need to prioritize. You can't do everything at the same time. So that's why you have to have a plan. Let me be very blunt and give a very typical example. Okay, you can't marry 2 women at the same time. Even if you're Muslim and you can marry up to 4, you don't marry them at the same time. All right, so you prioritize. Which one are you going to do first? Which are you going to do secondary? So prioritize. Look deeply within yourself. Search deeply within yourself. Do the pros and cons of both. Do a SWOT analysis of your different preferences. Be realistic with what you can do first. What are the low-hanging fruits? How can you combine them in ways that are exciting, in ways that bring most satisfaction, in ways that really make you happy? And then prioritize what you do as a primary career and what you do as a secondary career, or if you have third and fourth. But by all means, don't clutter, don't put too many things on the same plate, because you will end up messing up, or one will suffer to the detriment, to the benefit of the other. So try to really prioritize your actions and take them one at a time. There are people who have several businesses. I know of a man in this country who has 60 businesses registered. Out of the 60, less than 10 are really doing very, very well. But he has more than 60 interests. So to the point you're making, you can't, excel in all of them at the same time, because the human capacity doesn't allow that, unless you have enough financial resources to engage other people to head other businesses and to lead them under your watch and put in place boards to help those ones to happen. But so far as you don't have that at the moment, my strong advice would be think deeply about where you are today, your current situation, prioritize well, P1, P2, P3, and then use that to have a plan and then take them one by one. But take your time about it. Otherwise, you're really not going to achieve much, because you have a lot of clutter on the same plate.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I will move to Kwesi, and then we'll take a few questions from the chat. Kwesi, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Gillian. Thank you, Dr. Hazel. So my question is, what did you wish you knew in your early entry-level days in your career? And secondly, I think I love the answer you gave previously, because I'm someone who really wants to be in policy analysis and international development, because I majored in public administration, but I really love helping people in terms of anything HR, career-wise and everything. So, and what I'm doing now is really in line with that. So I'm trying to, just as you said, prioritize. Though it's a career path, I know I'll reach there, but I'm trying to use the HR route, which is really something that I really love doing as well. So I really like the answer you gave. But to my first question, what did you wish you had done in your early entry days?
I wish I had a career plan in my early entry days. So I launched straight into a job. I launched straight into the most available thing that, I was faced with. And I just continued on that path. If I'd been able to sit down properly and really thought through the interests that I really had and my preferences, and not being afraid to just take my time and go on that path, I would have been a completely different person today. Completely. Far from HR. But I didn't know that I had to make a plan then. All right. But when I learned about making plans, I put together a plan 10 years ago about my 20-year plan. It takes money to achieve some of these goals. It takes family decisions to achieve some of these goals. When you have young children, when you have a family, sometimes you have to think a bit differently. So if I knew 25 years ago that I have to use a career plan to launch into my career options and my career preferences, I would have done that.
Thank you very much. And I think you've answered a question that came in through the chat as well, where someone said that they think the problem most of us have now is that they don't start right. And going back to start afresh is a big problem, because while they feel like starting afresh, they may not be able to make ends meet and manage. And so they manage with what they're currently doing. So they were looking for your advice in that respect. And then there was another question about how do you deal with your career path if you are currently unemployed? So I don't know if you'd like to respond to those two, then I'll ask you a few others as well.
So how often don't we see people who are age 60, 70, finishing a first degree or finishing a high school diploma or completing SHS? Just yesterday, I read on the social media about a gentleman who also started on a different path altogether and has been able to get an MPhil in a different field of endeavor. He didn't let his dream die. All right, we have people who have even retired and starting a degree of sorts or starting a different profession altogether. We have people who started off as, business people or in different fields of endeavor, moving to become entrepreneurs in fields like carpentry. I have a friend, a Nigerian friend, who calls herself a carpenter. This woman went to business school. She is now making furniture because that's her real interest. So nothing stops you. It's never too late. The most important thing is keeping that dream alive. And once it's written down somewhere and is often referred to, we make plans, however small, baby steps to achieve that. So that would be my response to the first question. Again, how do you have a career path if you're unemployed? I think in the earlier discussion, I mentioned that being unemployed is a reality that most of us find ourselves confronted with in one way or the other, or at some point in our lives, we find ourselves unemployed. I've been there before. The most important thing is keeping that career goal in mind. And sometimes you may have to make some sacrifice by taking a job or an opportunity that will give us the income we need to pursue or fund our career interests. So there is nothing wrong if you don't have a job or having to start at a different level, which is not your real career path, and eventually navigate to your career path in future. There is nothing wrong with it. So by all means, feel free. If you have a job that is not necessarily in line with the original career plan, just to feed yourself and your family, then you gradually, build the necessary skills to be able to launch into your real career path.
Thank you, Doc. So I'll read, there are 3 questions in the chat. I'll just give you all 3, and then I'll try and see if we can squeeze in 2 more at least from the main line. So one person says, Richard says he's currently reading IT, but would love to be a real estate developer, and he doesn't know how to kickstart. So he's looking for advice. That's one. The second question is someone wants to be an HR professional and she loves to work with people. She also wants to add a personal business to it, which she has started already, but she doesn't have anyone around her in the cosmetic field that she can speak to for help. So she feels limited and flat because she doesn't feel she has someone that she's even accountable to. So she's also asking, what can she do? And then the third question is on the self-assessment that you mentioned, where Ellen is saying that she's at the point, she actually doesn't even know what her interests really are in order to develop them. So she wants to know, how does she start a self-assessment when she still is not sure what she's really interested in? Okay, there's a question, Ivy. The question that you came in is related to investment, so we can take that in the next section. So Doc, go ahead with those, please.
Okay, so I'll just try to note them down. IT to transition to real estate and doesn't know how to do that. my strong advice would be look for role models, approach the people who have already started real estate businesses. Let yourself become a protege to these people. Do volunteer work, visit them, do internships with them, read about everything real estate, and then gradually start something. There is so much information out there. There are so many people who are also willing to help when it comes to having proteges, you know, because eventually you become part of their success stories. So please, by all means, as you transition into real estate or have the dream of transitioning, don't lose out on those opportunities. HR professional, you want to add a side business, cosmetic, etc. Again, search. I know people who are doing a lot of cosmetic work today. There's a lady I know, Impressions by Ellie. You can search for her on Instagram, Impressions by Ellie. Fantastic lady who is combining a profession with cosmetic work. I know another person who is also into personal branding, Renee Q. Check for Renee Q on Instagram as well, and reach out to these people. They would love to help you. All right. I keep saying that everything we are looking for is out there. It depends on how we look for them. Self-assessment, you don't even know what your interests are, let alone even start. You need somebody to begin to talk to you and help you search within yourself. So there are coaches who are specialized in doing these things, right? I do it. There are a lot of people in Ghana who do it. There is a friend of mine in Nigeria, Lanre Olushola, who does it as well. He's called a Catalyst. You can get him on Instagram as well. Reach out to these people and have a conversation with them. They will help to search within yourself to unleash what your real interests are, or help you to find what your real interests are and then use that to build a plan. But the most important thing when you're doing a self-assessment or being assessed to determine what your interests are is to be honest with yourself. Be very, very honest with yourself in terms of what your real interests are, your strengths, your development areas. Being realistic and being honest is a very, very important gift to self, okay? If I take myself, I love science, right? But I'm not good at science. When I hear about people who have gone into space, I'm blown away. Can I ever be that? The answer is no, because it is nice for me to observe and read about all, you know, that has to do with space discoveries and all of that, but I don't have the proficiency to be able to get there. I don't even have the resources to get there. So what I can do is to admire that in my current state. And if there's any contribution I can make through maybe writing or publishing something or reading or giving ideas, if I'm in that space, I will do it. But it's not in my place to become, you know, somebody who goes into space. I admire it, but I can never be that because the stretch from where I am today is too wide. All right. So we need to be very realistic and honest with ourselves about what's possible within our current circumstances, and then live our career dreams through those possibilities. Thanks, Jimmy.
Thank you so much, Doc. Okay, so we'll, Christopher, unmute yourself and ask your question, please, as we round up.
Yeah, hello, good morning. Doctor, thanks for your much insight you've given the house. I have a bit of questions to ask, especially to Databank. I want to know their view or their advice on cryptocurrency. Okay, I started studying it since 2016, and I think it has more insight. It has much future for us all. So I just want to advise on cryptocurrency. Thank you.
Okay, Christopher, your voice was breaking a bit, but I think you were asking about cryptocurrency.
Yes, please. Yes. Please.
Okay. Our view as a company and more broadly as an industry is that it is still too new of an area for us to venture in. So Databank as a company doesn't touch it. The Securities and Exchange Commission has also said that it is not regulated. And so they currently are not endorsing or supporting any company that offers it. It is too high risk. There are too many unknowns with it. So what I always tell people is that if you have extra money that you don't have anything to do with at all, and you've done all your other investments and everything else, and you still want to give it a shot, give it a shot. but
Okay.
don't look at that as your main source of achieving anything, because it's too risky right now, and there are too many. While some people are making money, others are really losing, and you don't want to put your hard-earned money at risk in that respect. So now, nobody in the Ghanaian investment industry is touching it right now.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Right.
Okay, last question, Ferguson. I'm very sorry, everyone. We can't continue to take questions because we still have one more section. But as I said, please drop your questions in the chat, and then I will take them. I'll reach out to Doc. I'll get her responses, and then you will get your answers when the program is done. So because she stops talking and you stop seeing her face, doesn't actually mean that you can't get an answer to your question. So Christopher, yours is the last question we'll take. Everybody else, Ferguson, Frederick, Dixon, John Bosco, Richard, Nana Abena, put your questions in the chat and we will get an answer for you. So Christopher, please, no, Ferguson, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. And thank you, Hazel, for all the information you've shared with us this morning. I am currently in a position where I find very difficult. So I started a job when I completed my national service, and it wasn't really my area of interest, but I took the opportunity. And later on, I found an area where I was interested in. I had someone who was ready to take me on as a mentor and to have me shadow him. But unfortunately, I am unable to find time to work with him because my current role is not as flexible to occupy that as well. Please, what would you advise that I do, and how do you think I can get around this obstacle? Thank you.
Thank you, Ferguson. It's about time management and making some hard choices. So if you find yourself, in a situation where time is not allowing you to be able to pursue your dreams with the mentor that you have been blessed with, you have to have some introspection in terms of your 24 hours, your 7 days a week, how your time is being consumed by your current work. And if you want to stay in that employment, if it's taking all your time, then it means that dream that you have, for which you have a great mentor, may not be materialized. You may want to consider a change that would allow some flexibility, or you may want to talk to your employers about the fact that you need some flexibility in the way that you carry out your assignments. I'm not sure about the peculiarity of your current job, so I can't speak to it, but sometimes you can just talk to employers about what interests you have outside of work and how you can manage your time a bit differently. Again, it's about structure also. There are times that really, if we take a step back and reflect and restructure how we are doing our work, we can actually save so much time. So you may want to consider restructuring your time, talking to your employer, and reflecting on really how badly you want this mentorship, arrangement, and looking for options. I'm not sure you've considered a digital approach to your mentoring opportunity with this mentor you speak about. If that's a possibility, how about weekends, dialing into a Zoom call or Microsoft call or WebEx or whatever app you want to use, and have some time with your mentor. If it means that every other weekend or every month you travel to go and see your mentor in case it's possible for you to do that and it's within your means, how about that option? Is your mentor flexible to do that with you? So think differently without the box, not outside the box, about your options, pencil them down, do the pros and cons of all the options, and by all means get into action. Ferguson, and I wish you all the best with that.
Thank you so much, Doc. So I'm really, really grateful on behalf of Databank for the time you've given us. As I've said to everyone, if you have questions, just drop them in the chat, and then I will reach out to her and get the answers for you so that it can still help you. So don't stop asking just because this part of the session ends. But thank you so very, very much. You can drop off at any time now because I know you have other things, but if you want to stay, feel free to stay as well. But thank you, thank you. So now we are actually going to move into the investment section, and I will actually share a very brief presentation on 10 mistakes that you should try not to make when it comes to financial planning. So I'll share that, and then we'll take questions, and we will wrap up by 11:50. So in the next 40 minutes, we will wrap up and release everyone. So let me just share my screen. One moment, please. And Annalisa, can you just confirm that you are seeing my screen?
Yes, I can, Gillian.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so very briefly, I'll try and get through this as quickly as possible so that we have time for questions. But there are a number of financial planning mistakes that many of us make, and it really, sometimes you may not see the impact of those mistakes immediately, but over time, you will realize that goals that you had wanted to hit, you haven't hit them. You have more debts than you thought you would have had at a certain point. And a lot of it can be avoided. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So the one thing that I would like you to remember is that it's not about how much money you make that makes you rich. It is your spending and investing habits that will give you true wealth over the long term. Some of us think that, oh, the person who is earning 10,000 CDs a month is richer than the person who is earning 1,000 or 2,000. Not necessarily. Not if you are spending, if you're earning 10,000 and you're spending 12,000 a month, you are far worse than the person who earns 1,000 and spends 800. That person is actually richer than you. So a lot of the mistakes feed into or come from poor spending habits. So mistake number one is failing to set financial goals. When Dr. Hazel was talking, she also spoke about setting goals for your career plan. It's the same on the financial side. You need to have financial goals. So you need to decide, okay, if you're a student, 5 years from now, what kind of job would you like? Where do you want to be living? Do you want to be living in an apartment? If so, where is that apartment going to be? How much is it going to cost? Do you want to buy a car for yourself in the next 5 years, 6 years, 7 years? How much money do you want when it's time to retire? Though most of you are not thinking about that yet. But every dream that you have, every goal that you have will have a financial amount that is attached to it. And so you need to list those goals, you need to list the timeframes, and then you need to figure out how much each goal will cost financially. That is the beginning of your plan, and that's what most of us do not do. The second thing that we don't do is that we don't live within our means. There's a real difference between what you want and what you really need. So you need food to eat. We all need food to eat. Do you need to eat pizza every week? Or do you need to go to a fancy restaurant every week? Or can you go to one of the shops in some area and get the food? It depends. We all have things we enjoy, granted. But you have to try and keep it within your means so that you don't overspend and because you're trying to keep up with other people and you have a friend that has a certain car or lives in a certain area, and so you want to go and do the same thing that person is doing. Meanwhile, you don't absolutely need it to survive. So know the difference between your needs and your wants and try to live within your means. That's mistake number two that we make. Number three, taking on unnecessary debt. There's a saying that goes, if you don't have debt, avoid it. If you have it, try and pay it off quickly. Debt is something that you don't want to joke with. Now, from time to time, you will actually need to take on some debt to help you. It's fine. So it may be that you want to purchase a house and you need to take on a mortgage, or you want to go and study for some program degree and you take on a loan for that. There are sometimes it's necessary to take on a loan, but there are other times it is not necessary. For example, you want to get married and you want to have a big flashy wedding, so you go and take a loan to get married. That is unnecessary debt, because what will happen is that that money that you've spent is not returning anything. It just means you will get married and then suddenly, in addition to your expenses now as a couple, you have debt that's following you. So be able to differentiate between necessary debt and unnecessary debt. And as much as possible, you should be investing towards whatever it is you need. One of the biggest mistakes that we make within the debt field, and I saw it in the questions that were coming through the chat, is that we have people want to start businesses and they go and take a loan. There's nothing really wrong with taking a loan to start a business. The mistake that people make is that there's a mismatch. So most businesses, rule of thumb is it will take 5 years minimum to turn a profit. But you've taken a loan and you have to pay back the loan in 1 year or 2 years, which means that you will have to find that money to pay back before you even start making a profit for your business, which will put you in debt. And so you see many businesses start and they stop before they even have a chance to get off the ground, because people haven't done their due diligence and made sure that the time frame that they're giving themselves to pay back matches the time they expect to actually make money. So that's mistake number 3. Mistake number 4 is not taking advantage of the power of time. So the majority of people on this call are young, in their 20s. And the gift that you have as a young person compared to me or somebody who is in their 40s, 50s, is that you have time. And as long as you have time, you will be in a better position to achieve your financial goals using less. The shorter your time frame, the more money you need to set aside to achieve any goal. So it's really, really important that you take advantage of time and you don't keep delaying. Here's an example. So let's say that you want to achieve 1 million CDs at age 60. This is just an example. So all of us on the call, we all say we want 1 million CDs at age 60. The only difference between us will be our ages. Everything else will be the same. Somebody who is 20 will only need 44 CDs. They will only need to invest 44 CDs a month in order to hit the 1 million at age 60. By the time you get to 25, so 5 years has passed, that amount grows to 89 CDs. If you wait till age 35, it's 367 CDs. Age 40, 762 CDs. Every 5 years that you wait, the amount you need to invest doubles. That's what it means by taking advantage of time. Don't waste time. And don't think that you can always start tomorrow or the next day or the next year. Every day that you sleep and wake up, you have cost yourself time. So it's something that you really, really need to appreciate and make an effort to invest. Number 5, the 5th mistake that we often make is that we have one account and we say we're saving, we put all the money in that one account, but every time something happens, we dip into that account. Now, the problem is, imagine that you were, again, trying to get this 1 million CDs by age 60, but along the way, your car breaks down, you dip into that money to fix your car. You go again, you get married, you have kids, you need to pay school fees, you dip into that and you pay school fees. Somebody in the family gets sick, you dip into it to now go and pay the hospital bill. The problem is that You will get to age 60 and the 1 million that you were working towards that you thought you would have, you don't have because you kept dipping into it along the way. So it's really, really important. And it's one of the single biggest mistakes that we make, that you combine all your investments in one account. Don't do it. So mistake number 6, and this follows from the previous point, is that people do not have a separate emergency account to take care of financial emergencies. So what should you be doing? You need to have an investment account. I mean, some people have it in a savings account, no problem. You can. My advice, though, is always go for an investment account, because investment accounts tend to generate higher returns because of how they are managed. That said, you need a separate emergency account that should be able to cover at least 3 to 6 months of your living expenses. So if on a monthly basis, your living expenses are 500 CDs, you should have an account with 1,500 CDs in there minimum. If your living expenses are 5,000 CDs, then you need an account with 15,000 CDs minimum. It's not something that you have to necessarily get to overnight, but it is something that you want to take your time and build. And then when you have built it, you should have a defined list of emergencies that you will use, or that will be a reason for you to dip into it. If it's not on the list, you don't touch this money. So you have an emergency account and you say, I will only dip into it if I need to fix an appliance, or if there is a car accident, or maybe I need to go to the hospital for something. I always say, if you see a TV on sale, is not an emergency. You don't dip into this account for that. So have an emergency account, have the 3 months minimum. You don't need to overfill it. So if you hit your 3 months of living expenses, you don't have to keep building and building and building. There are other ways for you to do that. And then make sure that it's accessible, but not too accessible. So it's not something that you want to have an ATM card. So in 5 minutes, you can go and pull out money. If it's too accessible, you'll dip into it unnecessarily. So mistake number 7 is now not having a multi-purpose account. So this account is, everybody should have this kind of account that you do dip into for things like vacations, weddings. If you want to start a business or start a project, you have a separate account for this, not your emergency account. You have this account and you also put money into this, and you build and build and build towards any goal that you may have. Number 8 mistake is not having a retirement account. Now, I know most of you on this call are young and you are in school and you are thinking that I am too young to even think about retirement, or I don't even have a paycheck, or a job. So I don't have a job, so how can I be thinking about a retirement plan? No problem. The day you get your first paycheck should be the day you start planning for your retirement. Too many people wait until age 50 or 55 when they've only got a few years left to start thinking about it. And that is what costs them money. And it leads to frustration, it leads to anxiety, it leads to people getting sick and having strokes and heart attacks, because they get to a point where they realize that, in a few years, my job will be done and I'm not ready. So when we have meetings that we do with SNIT from time to time on retirement, and they always say, the moment you get your first paycheck is when you should start planning for retirement. So please, please, please don't think you are ever too young to start, because the earlier you start, then it just means that you only need to put away a small amount to get to that goal. Mistake number 9 is having the wrong investment mix. And there are 2 ways that you can have the wrong investment mix. One is when you don't match your investments to your time frame. So in investing, when you think about why you are going to invest and you think about your goal, it will either be short term, which means that it's 3 years or less. It would be medium term, which means 3 to 5 years, or it would be long term, which is typically 5 years or more. Depending on your time frame, there are only certain types of investments that you should touch. So as an example, if your time frame, let's say you want to start a business in the next 2 years, that means your time frame is short, which means you only do what they call fixed income investments that don't move around a lot. So you would do something like M Fund or Eddy Fund Tier 1 or Treasury bills or bonds. Those are very steady. They're not going to be moving because your time frame is short. You can't afford to have your money going up and down. So that's one way we have the wrong investment mix. The second way is when we don't know our risk tolerance. So you could have a time frame of 30 years or 40 years, but you don't like risk and you don't like to see your money going up and down. It means that your risk tolerance is low, which again means you are limited in the kinds of investments you should try. And you stick with the same 4 that I mentioned: M Fund, Eddy Fund Tier 1, Treasury bills, bonds. If your risk tolerance is higher, which means you are not the kind of person who every day you're checking your balance to see if it went up or it went down, and when it goes down, you start to freak out. If you are that kind of person and you can take some movement, then your risk tolerance is medium or high. You're okay. You can begin to add other funds like B Fund, ARC Fund, EPAC, equities like stocks from the stock exchange. You have more that you can add. But if your risk tolerance is low or your time horizon is short, then you stay in your fixed income pool. The last mistake that many of us make is that we are emotional. And so emotional means when some investment is doing really, really well and the returns are high and we hear people talking, we're gone, we're there, we're putting all of our money there. Then when the investment starts to fall, we freak out and we say, no, give me all the money, let's take it, let me go somewhere else. And then you see the investments going up again and then everybody brings the money back. That's called emotional investing. And people who invest emotionally lose in the long run. The best thing you can do is be steady with your investments. The steady investor always wins. They do. So don't get emotional, but you will help yourself not to be emotional if you match your investments with your risk tolerance and your time horizon. That's how you manage it. So definitely don't be an emotional investor. So there are 3 steps that you should take, you should use to take control of your financial future. As I said, number 1, start with why you are investing and how much time you have. Know that. Number 2, know your risk tolerance. And the question that we ask to help you identify that is saying, imagine that each of you on the call gave Databank 10,000 CDs to invest. And you told us, Databank, take this money, invest it for me. I will come back for it in 5 years because that's when I will need it. But at the end of the first year, your 10,000 drops to 9,000. How would you feel? Will you be on the left where you're not too concerned because you have a 5-year plan? If that's you, your risk tolerance is high. Or will you be concerned, but you will say, okay, let me watch it maybe another year before I take any money out. If you're that person, then it's medium. If you're the kind of person who is just, you've lost it and you come and say, Databank, give me my money, give me the 9,000 that's left, let me take it and go, then your risk tolerance is low and you stay away. So the final step is make sure you match your risk tolerance and your time horizon with your investments. I can't say it enough. So on the screen, it simply shows you what kinds of products you can choose. And we've just used Databank's products as an example. If your risk tolerance is low, M Fund, Eddy Fund, Tier 1, Treasury bills, bonds. If it's medium, you can begin to add some balance funds. So ARC Fund, B Fund, Eddy Fund. But you can also hold some of the other four. So it doesn't mean that now you can only do these three. No, you can have any mix of any of these. If it's high, then you have the whole range. You can add EPAC, you can add shares. The funds that are in yellow, what is unique about them is that they have what you call equity inside, which means that there are stocks that are listed on the stock exchange that are also part of these funds. And they have it in different percentages, but the more stocks there are, then the more the balance will move up and down. That's what it means. So guys, really do your best. Make sure your risk tolerance matches your time horizon. If you do that, it will get rid of the emotion. It will make sure, it will help you to meet all your goals, and you will be able to put yourself on the right financial track. So that is it for this presentation. I am going to stop sharing the presentation so that we can move into questions. But thank you very much for listening. So, okay, I will start with the questions in the chat. Let me quickly go through those, then I will come to the hands that are raised. So I've got, okay, somebody is asking if there are opportunities for volunteer work or internships with Databank at the moment. Volunteer work, we do tend to have openings from time to time. So my advice is send your CV, let us know that you would like the opportunity to volunteer, and then, so send your CV, to careers@databankgroup.com. So careers@databankgroup.com. Just go to our website, you'll see the email address. Let us know you'd like to volunteer or you would like to do an internship. And then as soon as an opportunity comes up, then we will help you. Somebody else is asking, can I have 2 M-Fund accounts that I want to use each for a different purpose? Absolutely. So George, you could have an account that is your emergency account that you have M-Fund in. You have your multi-purpose account and you choose to keep M-Fund in that too. For me personally, I have the emergency account, my multi-purpose account, and my retirement account. And I actually have M-Fund in all 3. But with the retirement one, then I have some EPAC and ARC Fund as well. So you can have the same funds in different accounts. You're not limited in that way. Then somebody says, how do I plan for my retirement with Databank? I'm 25 years old. Verna, send an email to marketing@databankgroup.com. That's marketing@databankgroup.com. And just let us know that you heard us here, and we'll actually get somebody to get in touch with you and take their time and walk you through all the steps that you would need for that. Somebody else is saying, I'm a level 100 business admin student. I want to start something for myself, but have so many interests, how to start, which one to start. And I also feel that sometimes the capital is not enough. So Joshua, it's all about focus and priorities. My advice is start with what they call the lowest hanging fruit, which means start with the thing that will cost the least, that you have the highest skill set to accomplish, and that will likely yield the greatest returns in the shortest period of time. You start with that. And as you build and it yields more money, then you use that money to start other things. But don't try and start 2, 3, 4 things at the same time. Pick one and be focused about it. If you're interested in national service, send your email as well to careers@databankgroup.com. I am going to switch to John Bosco, who I'll ask to unmute himself, and then I'll come back and take more questions in the chat. So John Bosco, go ahead, please.
Thank you so much, madam. The things that we do.
I can hardly hear you. Could you speak out?
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Okay. With the mistakes, one of them that touches my heart is taking on unnecessary debts. The country we live in now sometimes also make the debts very, very unnecessary because the interest rates, as we speak, are just killing. But again, we don't have that issue of many people inheriting from their parents or grandparents some assets to begin life with. Personally, for me, I'm growing up not to even single out one land my grandfather even bestowed on my father before my father even bestowed it on me. So I'm starting life from the scratch. So sometimes if I decided to take life head on, I can't do away with taking some debts through loans and those things. So I want you to actually tell us how, if the loans are taken, we should be able to manage it so that it will reflect the very motion for which the loans have been taken. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, John Bosco. I appreciate your question. So you're right. In the case of many Ghanaians, their parents have not set them up for success. And in fact, many of them, their parents are even looking to the young people for help. So it kind of forces you in a certain direction where you need to take loans to help advance you in certain areas. What I would say is that, and this is where it comes into the needs and the wants, where let's say you have a first degree, you want to do a second degree. You don't absolutely need to do the second degree right away. There are times that you can work a few years, actually save the money to the second degree, for the second degree, and then fully pay for it upfront.
Absolutely.
So sometimes, John Bosco, we push ourselves into these corners because we shorten the time frame of things that we need to do when we can just wait maybe a year or 2 or 3 more and then actually save towards it. So part of the plan for not taking on unnecessary debt does go back to step 1, which is write down the goals that you actually have and when you would like to achieve it. And then see which ones can I now invest towards so that I can fund them myself, or even reduce the amount of the loan that you would want to take. That's how you manage it. There are some things you will need to take the loan for, but in that case, then you really ask yourself, do I have to do this right now? It's not always necessary. And if we can be honest with ourselves and not let peer pressure or anything else like that force our hands to take these loans, it will help. Your rent, you can save for it. A lot of times we pay the rent the 2 years upfront, and then instead of saving for the next 2 years and you save a monthly amount so that when the time comes you have money, you live fully with what you earn, don't save anything towards the next rent, and then you take a loan to pay your rent again. You don't have to take a loan. You could have actually invested towards that. So that's the kind of mindset that we need to have. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. A very quick suggestion.
Okay.
I'm actually becoming a bit inclined with investment education when I decided to do what I'm doing with Databank. Actually following you on every trail of your seminars. So my suggestion is that Databank should have a policy or something to develop right now among the youth that are a bit not having any mentors at all. Some of us don't have mentors. We decided to break the social media to have our own mentors, so that whatsoever we do, we can have some one-on-one seminars, not necessarily on virtual means like this, but coming closer to us face to face, see who we are, read our emotions, and then you monitor our progress so that at the end of the day, you people become part of our success story. I rest my case. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, John Bosco. And I'm going to just comment on the mentor thing. I'm glad he brought it up. And I will speak from extremely personal and firsthand experience. Too many young people say they want mentors. And when the mentors make themselves available, they don't even take advantage of the situation. I'll give you some examples. I have been at programs where I have spoken. Other leaders have come and spoken. And the meeting host will say, okay, young people, come and interact with the leaders who are here, the facilitators, for a few minutes. Do you know what the young people do? They come and take selfies and pictures. Like, really, what is that going to do? So they come, they waste that opportunity. Some will come and take your phone number. They never use it. Others that will actually go one step further and reach out to you have nothing to say. So they reach out and they say hi, and instead they end up asking for money, or they end up asking for something else. So if we really want mentorship to work in this country, the young people need to take responsibility as well to make it work. Most leaders will avail themselves if the young people take advantage of it, but they are not. It is not a platform for you to go and ask for money every day. And that's what mostly happens. So you find that after a while, leaders begin to withdraw, but it's not because they don't want to. So I encourage everybody, take advantage of it, but use it when the opportunity comes. Bone Crusher, I don't know your name, but go ahead, unmute yourself and speak. We have 8 minutes to go. And please, if you can keep your question really, really short. Thank you.
All right. All right, please, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you very much for your presentation. We've had the ideal situation, and I would want a very practical one here. So I'm a family man with 4 kids, earning 500 cedis a month. How do I get into this issue of setting some financial goals vis-a-vis the pressures of life? That's the first one. Then the second aspect has to do with in terms of the investments. You know, sometimes you are locked up in issues of, let's say, getting a place of abode for you to stay due to the pressures from landlords and their stuff. Now, I want to know, will it be better for you to still keep up your investments or take it off and start something like your own building, or like you have a land already, so you start your own building on it, keeping it in the bank as an investment vis-a-vis doing that? Which advice will you give concerning that? Thank you.
You're welcome. I would love to know your first name.
My first name is Samuel.
Okay, Samuel, thank you. Okay, so family man, 4 kids, so lots of mouths to feed, only earning 500 cedis a month. What I would say is, Samuel, if it's even 5 cedis a month that you can squeeze out and just put in an investment, it's okay. And the reason that I still advocate investing, no matter how challenging your financial situation may be, and there may be some months that you just can't do it, and it's fine. So you may skip a few months, but If you look at last year, 2020, March, COVID-19 hits, the pandemic was here, and people who were star employees, doing everything right, all of those things suddenly didn't have a job, or their paychecks got cut in half, or they had businesses and people stopped buying because life around us changed. It is then that people realized how necessary it was to have some backup money somewhere, even if it was small. So Samuel, one way or another, I would, if it's even 2 CDs, please still try and push it somewhere for a rainy day. Now you talk about, is it better to invest or build if you have land? If you have land, and you're building, you'll still need money to buy the cement, buy the blocks, all of those things. That money has to come from somewhere. And the worst thing that you can do is you start building and then you run out of money and then everything is halted. And so maybe for the next year, 2 years, you can't move. If you want to build and you want to use that building to now turn around and generate income, figure out exactly how much you will need to build and figure out how you will get that money first before you start, so that you don't get halfway and you get stuck and now you have no backup money and no building to rent. That's what I'm hoping to help you avoid by saying, if it means delaying the building for a year or 2 and then trying to save towards it, you're better off than saying, right now, I only have this tiny amount, so let me just build. Make sure that when you start, you can actually finish so you don't tie up your money unnecessarily. I hope that helps.
Yes, but the issue in our case, I don't know whether our part of the world is seriously peculiar, because you plan putting down money for this builder and you do all the cost analysis that, okay, you want to have this to build. Now, there comes a case where cement prices are just moving anyhow, iron rods moving anyhow. You've done the cost. So let's say for last year, 10,000 would have finished up to a certain point. But so you are trying to save. Now, coming to this year and the prices have shot up outrageously. How do you tackle that?
So typically when you are building, let's say you are going to hire a contractor to even build for you. The way most contractors and people price their things is, you did your estimates, you did your plan, everything, and you said, okay, last year it would have cost 20,000. What you need to do to help manage the uncertainty in Ghana and the way prices can just blow up overnight is that you then you may decide to say that, okay, then let me add another 25% to that amount. So instead of 20,000, now it will be 25,000 that you will need. So you need to, even with your costing, build in a cushion amount for price changes. That's how you manage it. Because you're absolutely right. Like, prices here, today it's 1 CD, tomorrow it's 5 CDs, and there's no explanation. It just happens. Okay.
Is it?
Oh, geez. Sorry, Samuel. I muted you.
I was asking. You talked about some 2 CDs. Is Databank taking 2 CD for an investment?
Yes, we are.
Oh, okay. All right.
We are.
Thank
we
you.
Really are. Okay, you're welcome. Okay, so we have about 2 minutes left. So Frederick, I will take your question and then we will wrap up. There are a number of questions that came in the chat as well. And Frederick, while you are unmuting yourself, I'll just answer one from Kwame, who asked about with respect to retirement, whether SNIT and private insurance wouldn't be enough, especially when your income isn't that big. The answer is 100% no. because SNIT, they will only, the way it's structured is that at most it will pay you up to 60% of what you were earning. And when you look at the numbers, the averages are actually really, really low. Most people get between 300 CDs and about 700 CDs a month. And so you want to have SNIT coming in, but you don't want to stake your retirement on SNIT. Let it be a bonus to plans that you make for yourself. Don't let it be your only solution, because you may be very unpleasantly surprised. So Frederick, please go ahead with your question. Frederick. Okay, Frederick. All right, so I'll switch to Doris and take the last question from Doris. So you can unmute yourself. Frederick, I've seen a question in the chat from you, so we'll send you the answer for that. Doris, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm very grateful for the time and very insightful information. And just a quick one to suggest to what the gentleman who was talking about mentors. I just want to say a quick one that there are mentors all around us. They don't have to be very far away out there in the States or in Accra. They can even be within your own community. They can help you out. But about the investment thing and the risk and whether low or medium or high risk, I want to find out if, for example, let's say I throw money in Databank and my EPAC has been there since 2007. I don't even check up on it. And I don't know if I'm a very high risk person or that is really a bad thing to be doing. And secondly, you said something about, let's say you give 10 years to go and withdraw or take up your money. And then by that 10th year, it's low in terms of whatever you are taking home. Should you wait for a high hit before you go and then take your money? Or what would you do at that time when it's ready to be withdrawn and then it's not really up to what you're looking for? I don't know if my question is clear enough.
Okay, so you're asking, your second question is you've invested money and you need to take it, but at the time you go to take it, it is not up to where you expected it to be?
Because let's say, for example, EPAC, because it's a high risk investment of a sort, there is some form of fluctuation in terms of the figures, let me put it so. So for example, today you put in 10,000, today is 9,000, 8,000 something, it can shoot up to 12,000. So for example, the time that it's mature of a sort, it's probably plummeted instead of going up. Would you still have to wait and look into the lenses of the investment and see the right time to take it out? Or anything is good kind of thing?
Okay, so in that case, if you don't absolutely need it, then it is in your best interest to let it wait. That's why we also recommend that you have a mix of investment, so that if all your money is not just concentrated in EPAC, so that if EPAC goes down, then everything is down at that time. It's always good to have a mix between something with equities and then something that's purely fixed income, so that it helps to kind of balance out the performance in your account. So that's how I would manage that.
And should I be checking on the investment every now and then? Or it's okay
yes, absolutely. Check on it, but check on it, I would say at a minimum, check on it monthly. If you can check on it more frequently, but on a monthly basis, it allows you to allow the investment to kind of travel a bit so that you see what is happening. Checking on it more often might just cause you to have heart palpitations on a day-to-day basis. So keep an eye on it every month and then take it from there. All right, so I am really sorry, but it's 11:54 and we are at the end of the program. So to end the program, there are just a couple giveaways that we have, and I have 2 questions that we'll give away, and then we'll follow up with an email where you'll get to find out about a promo that we're running, so that you can also deposit and win as well. So for the question that I'm going to ask, put your answers in the chat. The first person to put the correct answer in the chat is the one that will win. So question number 1 is from Dr. Hazel's presentation. She listed a number of skills that we should have. I would just like for somebody to list 3 of the skills she mentioned that we should have. Woo, Ellen, you are fast. Okay, so Ellen says teamwork skills, emotional intelligence, reflecting on interests, understanding your personality. That's absolutely correct. Ellen, please just confirm your phone number in the chat as well. And then you have just won a 50 CD gift voucher. I've got another 50 CD gift voucher to give away. And this one is list 3 mistakes that I listed in my presentation that you should avoid on your financial planning path. Wow. Hey, somehow I feel like you guys knew the questions in my head. So Emmanuel came in and he actually listed even 5. Failing to set financial goals, not living within your means. Yes, taking on unnecessary debt, correct. Then he went on to say combining all your investments in the same account and being an emotional investor. So Emmanuel Opoku Ajiman, please also put your phone number in the chat and then we will confirm it. So I see that there are a lot of hands still up. We can't get to all the questions. I would advise you to just put your questions in the chat. We'll leave the meeting open for a few more minutes. Put your questions in the chat and then we'll respond to each of you. But I am really, really grateful for your participation, for all your questions. And I thank the whole team behind it as well for everything that they did. So thank you. We wish you a safe and happy 2021. And we are here always available to take your questions. Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.